Traders, investors, and peeps, what is going on? We are back. So let's talk about nano dimensioning. I just got off the phone with him. Good and bad news. I asked him at first, is it okay if I share this call? Can I record this call for my channel? Little bit of hesitation. He was fairly new. He'd been working there under a year. So I said, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll just have to summarize what we talked about. And so the first thing I wanted to address was the LDM system. When I was there, it required a lot of human interaction. It had to constantly be printing in order for print heads to not foul out. If it's constantly printing, it's constantly using silver ink, and that costs money. There was just some stuff. I mean, it's in development, and it still is, right? So there's always going to be elements of design that you need to iron out, and that is part of the process. So I wasn't too bothered by that at the time, but it definitely was a bottleneck, and so the LDM upgrade has answered that. It doesn't have to constantly run. It does boot up periodically to do a print, but it's not this constant back-to-back printing kind of thing like it used to be. More importantly, the calibrating process has been streamlined. Calibrating this thing was almost completely manual when I was there. It took a long time, and there was a learning curve to it. The better you calibrated it, the more complex prints that you could pull off. Smaller pitch geometries, really tight tolerance kind of stuff you could achieve if it was calibrated correctly. And that human element, that added tolerance there wasn't very desirable. And so it's really nice to see that they've answered that problem now with the LDM system, or the LDM upgrade rather. Now the guy was in sales, so as with sales, engineering doesn't like to give sales too much information because they try to sell it before we're done with it. And I know that problem all too well. So because of that, he couldn't really tell me a whole lot more about the rigid flex. We talked about the rigid flex, that they got a patent for it in the last video, and that was very intriguing to me. That is a big leap, and quite frankly, I would call that bragging rights. I mean, that would be quite something if they could pull that off in a meaningful way. And so he didn't have a lot of information about it. He said he would try and find out, but it was something that he was kind of surprised with, and he's been investigating himself since then. The other thing I addressed was the temperature. So because these things are printed, this is a low temperature soldering process. You can't go too hot. You will melt the PCB. And you have to use special solder paste or special solder for low temperature applications. So one of the improvements that he also pointed out was just that. They're curing these things and printing them at a lot higher temperature, and because they are manufactured at a higher temperature, they can be assembled at higher temperatures.
We have a very, very clear direction and plan, which obviously changed and developed over the last 2 months during the corona, as we realized that the market is actually supporting us so strongly. So now, with the amount of money you have mentioned, we intend to do really two things. We intend to use part of it for acquisitions of companies that are synergistic with our technology and with our markets. Obviously, we don't have competition yet, but we have what could be competition. So we intend to defend ourselves that way and improve our product by buying these companies. And we're talking together with Nndm and company, which are M&A advisors. I've spoken with 35, 40 out of 65 companies I looked at over the last 4 months. So that will be a use of proceeds of about half of that money over time, obviously, in the right price. The second half is we are accelerating our product development. We decided that rather than investing and over-investing in marketing and sales right now, when the market is really not there and the corona is keeping our customers at home, and this is not software business, they can't work from home if they're working in a laboratory. And so any money we spend on that will be wasted until corona subsides. So we estimate the corona will subside in 2-3 quarters. So in this time, we are investing the rest of the money, and we're not going to finish it. We have enough for the next 5 to 10 years, but we are going to accelerate dramatically the product development. We will get to the inflection point, which takes valuation of the company and revenue 10 times. And the inflection point is when our machines, which are now in development, are getting into production, not only prototyping. The minute our machines start to produce larger volumes of high performance electronic device, HiPads, we will be in a position where the desktop publishing was 20 years ago. We're changing the industry, and more importantly, we're making it clean industry, environmental friendly, and being able to reshore it back to the United States and Europe, where $70 billion of it, or 65, is in the Far East.
Now this technology.
So I wanted to show you guys that clip because we've talked about in some of the past videos, people wonder, why have they been doing offerings so often? What's it for? You heard them that if they just use it for operating expenses, the money can last them. And mind you, this is in December. This is before this latest offering of, what was it? $300 million. So I think that puts them at about $1 billion war chest of offering money. But the money isn't just for them to float along. They're trying to grow at an accelerated rate, right? You heard them in the video, in the clip. So a lot of that money is going to go into development, into the engineering and the R&D of the project. And then the other half, as you heard them, is going to go for acquisition, so they can buy up competition, buy up players that have stuff that they might want to bake into their deal. And so let's talk about some of the drawbacks, because there is some. This thing has a out the door installed with all the contracts and stuff. It's about $500,000 to get one of these things installed and set up and running. Now they do have leasing deals, but I would love to see this as like a service kind of setup where they give you the machine, you sign the contract, you're paying for the ink, you're paying for the support, all the stuff and things, which is still going to be expensive, but it makes the entry level way lower. And then if you decide that, hey, this thing is really helpful, it's transforming our business, then you can pull the trigger and actually buy the thing. But with a high dollar price tag like that, it's going to be harder for them to get their foot in the door at some of these smaller firms. And I would really like to see, that entry level opportunity cost lowered, because I think that would benefit them a lot. Also, and more importantly, and we're happy again. Market was closed today for Martin Luther King Day, but futures were not. And everyone remembers Friday. I'm sure your account was bleeding just like mine was. But we got some bounce action, man. We got some bounce on the 100. Got some upward trajectoritis on the MAC. That's very interesting. I'll have to do some research and see what's going on with the stuff and things. But yeah, guys, that is it for this one. Hit the thing, do the stuff, follow me on the stuff and things if you don't, join the Discord, and I'll catch you in the next one, traders.